Well, now I'd like to introduce Ellen Schutt, who's a member of the GOED team, and she's going to share with us some of the information about the consumer side, a Euromonitor study that was commissioned by GOED to survey store shelves in 10 different countries to determine what are the market drivers or the aspects of the omega-3 market from the consumer end. Ellen, I've enjoyed working with her since 2011, since she's been with the GOED, and she's had a long history in the nutritional products industry, and she helped to create Nutraceutical World, which is a leading industry trade magazine, which many of you are familiar with, and she's been working with startups and a lot of different angles of the nutritional industry, from the supply end to social media to media and print publications, and we're very blessed to have her on the GOED team. She's been working behind the scenes to make this conference happen, in addition to even doing a presentation as well. So with that, I'd like to welcome Ellen Schutt.
Thank you very much, Dan, and hello everyone, and welcome to the GOED Exchange. We're very excited to see a full room. I was a little worried yesterday and today. I know there was some weather not cooperating with us on the East Coast, so I'm glad to see all of you here. So as Dan said, I'm going to switch gears a little bit and talk about the consumer market, and I do have two different sources of information to talk about, and one is the Euromonitor report that we commissioned late last year. And this was, they called it a store check catalog, where they went to 10 different countries and looked at a variety of different retail stores and cataloged 2,100 different supplement products. But I have an additional part of my presentation, which is GOED also has some Nielsen data from the US that we would like to share. And I have a couple caveats, and one is that the Nielsen data, as many of you know, covers food, drug, mass, club stores, dollar stores, and military sales, and has estimated Walmart sales. So it's not including natural retail, it's not including MLM, it's not including internet. So there's a large chunk of the market that is not included in the data I'm going to show. But we have enough to be able to make some directionally correct predictions and analysis based on what we have. And with regard to the Euromonitor data, this is anecdotal information. It's certainly not meant to be quantitative, but we have some really good snapshots of what is happening in these 10 different countries. So the countries we looked at were Australia, South Korea, China, Japan, Germany, France, Italy, the UK, Canada, and the US. And we found some similarities across all of these markets, and then of course we found some differences. So the one thing we found that was true in every market that we looked at was that EPA and DHA content does not correlate to price. And let me make sure all of my dots are going to show up here. So we have 10 different countries and a lot of different EPA and DHA contents shown here and a lot of different prices, but no correlation whatsoever. So that R-square coefficient on the side is determining how much correlation there is. And a good R-square coefficient would be 0.7 or higher. And you can see the highest one here is 0.2, and many of them are 0.0 something. So very, very low correlation. And to me, this was a little bit surprising, but it was consistent across all of the countries. And the average price in most countries was in the $21 to $30 price range. And there was only one country, South Korea, that had a higher an average product price at $45. And so the other interesting thing to point out on this slide is that $45 is a big difference from the lowest price on here, which was the UK at $15 or $16. So definitely some variation among markets, but most were in that mid-20 price range. The other thing, not surprisingly, is you didn't see anchovy oil on labels. You didn't see a lot of named fish. Obviously, salmon oil is a growing market, and that certainly is a part of the market. But for the most part, the products were fish oil. They were just labeled as fish oil. The two, I don't want to call them exceptions because the UK and the US are still fish oil markets. The UK had a larger second place fish, which was cod. It's a big cod liver oil market. And the US had krill growing more than some of the other geographies did. Also not a surprise, soft gels were the primary product form in every country, and in most cases it was above 90 or 95%, so very high soft gel usage around the globe in these 10 countries. In a few of the countries, the US in particular, they had a little more diversity in terms of the products that are available here, just because of the maturity of the market. We saw some liquid products were kind of in different countries, but you saw some gummy products a little more popular here than in other countries, and some of the emulsion products, which we've seen growing in popularity here. And also, again, not a surprise, heart health is the primary product positioning in almost every country. There are two exceptions, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But heart health was the claim that you saw on most of the products. And this varied to some degree. One country might call out triglycerides. China said blood lipids. So there were different ways of describing some type of cardiovascular product. But heart health was by far the claim. And I do want to point out, though, that the US, there were plenty of products that said may reduce the risk of coronary heart disease. So we all know that that is not a legal structure function claim, but it's on a lot of products in this country. So that's a conversation for another presentation. So what I want to do now is go look at the different countries, but you have these slides, and there's a lot of information on each slide for you to use as a reference. I'm just going to spend a little bit of time talking about one or two important points for each country. But these slides do give you the average price for the supplement products in these countries and the most common EPA-DHA range. For 5 of the 10 countries, we have some Nielsen data, so I've included that sales data if we have it. The thing that I wanted to point out about Australia in particular is they don't agree with Aldo that joint health does not work, because the highest claim the largest claim that we saw on packages in Australia was joint health. So a lot more joint health product claims than heart health or brain health. Yes? Per the supplement bottle, a bottle of supplements on a shelf. Okay, moving on to South Korea. Again, I mentioned that this was the highest market in terms of product price at a $45 average supplement product price. And interestingly, this was also a market that had a high EPA-DHA range in the 750 to 1,000 milligram range. Now, I said earlier there's no correlation between price and high EPA-DHA content, but here's a country that has both. So we've heard from conversations with members that the concentrate market is growing pretty rapidly in South Korea. So we're attributing the high EPA-DHA range to a larger than maybe reflected concentrate market. China was more of a mid-level market at a $27 price range. And the thing I wanted to highlight about China is you saw a lot of claims there around purity and as I said here, fish oil from Iceland or imported from Norway. So they're doing a lot of promoting of their fish oil coming from somewhere else that is perceived as cleaner than China being a very polluted country, at least in terms of perception. Japanese market was also a mid-level market at the $30 average price. A low EPA-DHA range, surprisingly, because the DRI in Japan is 1,000 milligrams. So there's a disconnect between what the government is recommending and what you're seeing as the average product in Japan. The other interesting thing about Japan was seeing the claims around to supplement the lack of nutrition from fish. So GOED has done a lot of looking at Japan recently, and we've documented that it's not the sushi economy anymore. There's a lot fewer people eating fish in Japan. So it seems like supplement companies are possibly trying to capitalize on that trend and encourage people to take an omega-3 supplement in place of the fish that they're not eating. Germany, I don't know what's happening to my little Y there, but Germany is an average market. Again, heart health claims, average EPA-DHA range. If we look at the Nielsen data here, this is a pretty, what we would expect to see for a European country. Pretty stable sales, seasonal, a market that's relatively mature and been around for a while. France was, well, so France is a country that there's a lot of interaction at the store level with a pharmacist or with somebody that you need to talk to before you get an omega-3 supplement. So products more likely to be behind the counter. So that's a different dynamic compared to a lot of other markets. And this was a country where you saw more prevalence of brain health claims, not more than heart health, but just more than some of the other countries. So that was worth pointing out. Italy was the country with the highest EPA-DHA content per product at more than 1,000 milligrams. So this is kind of the opposite disconnect of what we saw in Japan, that the DRI in Italy is 250 milligrams, but the range on the products that Euromonitor picked up was over 1,000. So kind of interesting. And the Nielsen data here looks similar to Germany until you kind of look at the end of it where you start to see a decline. And we do need some more data on why that is. Because the interesting thing is, what my line disappeared here, but the line for the UK is very similar, that as it gets to the end, it's a very similar decline probably since late last year. So Italy and the UK, a very similar trend line and not going in the right direction. The other thing about the UK is, as I said before, it's a lot more cod liver oil products, so a lot more liquid products. And Canada was the other country that was not seen, heart health was not the primary claim that you saw in Canada. So brain health is the primary health claim positioning in the Canadian market. Canada was also very similar to the US, which I'm going to show next, with a kind of a discount market in the low 20s average price and a low EPA-DHA range. Oops, red button, go back, which is very similar to the US, like I said. The thing that was interesting about the US market is we saw claims here that you didn't see in any of the other markets. So there's more companies in the US trying to call out a particular omega-3 form. So I have a picture here of superior triglyceride form, or we saw made from natural triglycerides, or more bioavailable phospholipids. So there's more positioning around an omega-3 form, possibly to do some deeper product differentiation. And we also saw, I had mentioned purity claims in the UK and China. We saw a lot of third-party certification claims, IFOS certified, or MSC certified, or independently third-party verified. So a lot more trying to capitalize on that sort of third-party verification on US products. So I want to shift gears a little bit now and talk about what's happening in the US based on the Nielsen data that we have received and have analyzed. Actually, Aldo, the data analyst, has analyzed what's been going on over the past couple years. So this is just US only. Again, it's only Nielsen data, so it's a segment of the retail supplement market. And this is looking at October 2012 to October 2013. So the line in the middle is 0. If it's red, it went down. If it's green, it went up. So we're looking at both so sales by unit, by volume, and then sales by revenue. So if you look at the revenue side, you can see that the two drivers of revenue growth were the concentrate market and the krill market. So those are the two areas that are driving sales growth in the last year. And then looking at the decrease in terms of volume, and that was driven primarily by anchovy, and you can see how much the anchovy market dropped in the last year. For that little green box at the right side is the 1% sales increase that we had. The other thing just to point out on this slide is you can see algae, for example, decreased significantly in terms of sales, increased significantly in terms of volume, but it's almost unnoticeable. So same thing with salmon, same thing with cod liver oil. These markets are doing their own, they're fluctuating in, within their own market, but they're just such a small part of the overall market that you're not seeing them make a big difference in terms of the overall market changes. So we also took a look at the changes in sales according to the product price. And Euromonitor, according to their data, the average product price was $21. From the Nielsen data, it looks like it was really under $15. But if I look at the three different categories we have here, products less than $15, products $15 to $21, and products over $21, you can see here that the real change is in the more expensive products. And this kind of supports what Aldo found with the raw material segment as well, that you saw volume decreasing, but sales, dollars increasing. So it supports what he's saying about prices going up. So you kind of see that in all three product categories, but it's most noticeable in the most expensive bucket. So the last thing I want to talk about is where we are 6 months after the prostate cancer study. We've obviously had a lot of conversations about this. This is we've communicated a lot to our members about it. We've heard a lot from our members about it. And now we looked at what we could determine had happened based on what the Nielsen data was telling us. So if you look at this chart, you can see that the teal line is basically the raw data deseasonalized, just take out the noise. And then the orange line is a trend line that just kind of smooths it out to make it a little easier to look at. The white line is what we anticipated would happen based on the model that Aldo built from last July going forward. And the teal line is what did happen. And according to what we've determined from the Nielsen data, this is an 11% drop in retail sales. What we also did is looked at what this means in terms of consumers leaving the category. So the other thing that GOED has been doing is online omnibus surveys in a variety of different countries. So we ask people about purchase behaviors and find out whether they're users or non-users, and just do a lot of demographic analysis of who's doing what in the market. So we did this analysis in June 2012, this survey in June 2012, and then again in August 2013, so about a month, maybe 6 weeks after the prostate cancer study. And in that time, we determined that 5.5% of consumers had left the category. And the other thing we look at when we do these surveys is we ask the question, if you're not taking omega-3s, why not? And the choices are, they don't taste good, I don't need omega-3s, I don't believe in supplements, so a variety of different reasons. And when we looked at the reasons from June 2012 to August 2013, they really hadn't changed. There was no real standout reason that was a statistically significant reason that had changed in that time frame. So the other interesting thing is we have an 11.5% drop in men 55 and over, but we also had a statistically significant drop in younger women from 20 to 39. So we'll come back to that in a minute. So what all of this means, this 5.5%, is we believe approximately 12 million consumers have left the category. So this is it's a relatively small sample, so there's a large margin of error. It could be 6 million, it could be 23 million, but 12 million users is what the data is telling us. But I want to talk about that for a minute. So we know that this happened from June 2012 to August 2013. So this isn't something that happened since the prostate cancer study only. And we also know that there were younger women and older men. So let's do some analysis of what that means. The other thing is, we did a survey last August, and some of you have seen this at our fall member meetings last year, that we asked people what headlines they remembered hearing about. And it was right around the time of the George Zimmerman trial, a murder trial in the US that made a lot of headlines. And so 59% of people remembered the George Zimmerman trial. The next highest category was none of the above. And then we had 9.5% remembered the prostate cancer study, and 6.7% remembered the presidential election in Lebanon. So we made up the presidential election in Lebanon. There wasn't one. So when you look at this, it means that only 3% more people remembered the prostate cancer study than a fictional headline that we added to the survey. So that just gives you a little bit of perspective. The other thing is, we know that sales were already slowing, and we've had a lot of conversations with members about this too, and we've had members tell us that they have kind of seen the same thing. So you look at where the market was going and kind of when it started declining. And I drew that dotted line in the middle, and that line is September 2012, and that was the month that the Rizzo's meta-analysis was published saying that omega-3s don't really help for cardiovascular health. So that to us seems to have been the turning point for, obviously we're seeing that's when you start to see the decline in the market, and it's also when you started to see the change in the tone of the media and what was going on in terms of the number of positive versus negative media stories that you were seeing about omega-3s. And this is just a look in the last year. Most stories are neutral. You know, so-and-so hired a vice president, or this particular company added a manufacturing line or something like that. But looking at analyzing positive and negative studies, you could see that there were a lot more negative studies than positive in the last year. And this was the atmosphere when the prostate cancer study hit. So when we think about slowing sales, a lack of positive media, and the sensational headlines around an increased risk of prostate cancer, and that equating to 12 million fewer consumers, it feels like that all kind of comes together. That sort of explains why maybe younger women aren't in the category anymore, because they're not hearing the positive news. They're not the ones that are going to take an omega-3 because they're worried about heart disease or because they're worried about Alzheimer's. They need to hear that media story that says omega-3s are good for you for this reason, or oh yeah, I guess I should be eating more salmon. They need those influencers to get them back into the market and to get them caring more about omega-3s. And we need to go back and talk to those over 55 men about what they heard and what they know about omega-3s. So I heard David Guggenheim say that you have to end your presentation with hope. So this is my slide about hope. We need to reverse this trend. We need to change the tone of the conversation around omega-3s, and I really am challenging all you. This is the call to action to all of us figure out how to do this. GOED has a lot of ideas. We are very excited about some of the things that we're about to start doing to change the tone of the conversation. I would love to talk to you over the next couple days about what else we can do and how we can work together to really make a difference. Thank you.